It's Saturday. I think it's January 17th, I think, 16th or 17th. And I've gotten my half marathon run this morning. I did that in the kitchen. So that was around the dining room table, kitchen and living room. And had my bath, gotten dressed, wrote my daily correspondence to the president. And that is actually was mostly about giving an assessment, an updated assessment on my town, what I'm seeing, the changes that I've seen, those kinds of things. I am getting ready to do my Bible study. I can't remember if I did my Bible study or not. I was up at like 1 a.m., 12:45, 1 a.m. Went to bed about 4:30. Didn't sleep as well as I would have liked to. I had Diet Mountain Dew before I went to bed, so that kind of disrupted the sleep a little bit. And doing pretty good this morning. I put a pork roast into the oven, and that's going to be the meals that I make for this coming week. So probably do that in 2 different types of meals so that I'm not repeating the same thing over and over. And yeah, so that's about it. I guess the biggest thing that I'm thinking about today is lost and found. That seems to be what the voices talk about a lot. Is they don't talk about lost, but they use the word found a lot. They use the word some like as in some people experience this, not all, kind of thing. And then some of them are saying, well, it's going to be all me then. And so there seems to be a they kind of go through the same subjects, I guess, the whole time. They kind of rehash them, and each of them kind of plays the different parts. They're almost like they're waiting for a part to come out of a certain person's mouth to catch that person saying what it is that they've all been saying. So it seems quite divisive. And this morning was talking about, what is the Holy Ghost's intention with United States? What is the pulse of the nation? What is the direction that we've gone? And I was doing a little research from the 1900s to 1920s. In 1899, what was so stunning was the way that fashion changed from 1899 to 1920. In 20 years period of time, women went from wearing long dresses, very elegant, very going to a ball kind of dressing, very formal. It was just a very different dress in 1899. And then in 1920, it was, I guess, the women's suffrage is what they called it during that period of time. And in looking at the Holy Ghost and where that comes from, if that's a deep thing that's seated very deeply, that comes out through you as yourself, and what instigated those very huge changes in women especially. And they got the voting right around that time, between 1899 and 1920. The women's suffrage became a thing. They had 15 million immigrants that came into the country. They were recruited partially. The companies here in the United States needed more people to work in factories that did not need to have experience, and instead of putting their own people in those factories, they brought in 15 million workers from other countries. So that was another part of what I spoke to President Trump about, was looking back at that movement from 1899 to 1920 and where we're at right now and what happened with the immigrants coming in, and whether or not they were promised jobs and promised federal tax dollars in order to make the adjustment, in order to make the move over here, and what their expectations. I haven't seen anyone interviewing those immigrants and telling their stories and asking them those questions about how did they even know that people could cross the border without getting hurt, without getting trapped, and kind of how that word spread worldwide, and kind of who was behind those apps and those different things that they were doing. It sounded like they used those apps to bring those people in personally. And so the pulse of the environment is from going from good cop to you can come in, we'll help you, we'll give you, some money to stay in a hotel while you're here, yada, yada, yada. We're going to, support you as much as we can, to a president that said just the opposite. You weren't allowed to come here. Doesn't matter if you use the app, doesn't matter. You weren't allowed, that was illegal. You came in the back door, and we're going to ship you out, kind of thing. And so, of course, there's no way to ship out 22 million workers. And when they're forced into hiding, they're forced into taking payments that is lower than minimum wage. They're forced into positions that, that are kind of iffy. And looking at the people that are at Walmart, they're stocking up 4 and 5 buggies of food and filling up the back of trucks with food. I don't know what the conditions of those are, but most of the workers at Walmart have gone back to the lower class American teenagers, people with, that look like they've been through the ringer. I think there was 1 or 2 Muslim looking girls that were still left. One was not one that wore hijab. She looked like she had been here probably for a little bit longer, knew English. The men I'm still seeing outside Walmart with their prayer mats. I haven't looked in the drive-up area, but there's been like 20, 30 cars that sit there all day long. I don't know if I've never seen them pull groceries into their car. They come out and pray on their mats. They talk on their phones in those cars. I thought that they were probably the men that were married to the Muslim women that were working in the Walmart, but I haven't gone back through there to assess that, to see what that condition is. But that's kind of important that you're assessing your surroundings, that you're noticing changes, that kind of like when we were kids, we had that Highlights magazine where you're always looking for something that's out of place, something that's different, that shouldn't be there, something that was, when you compared, a past picture of what things look like and a present picture of things that you look like, what were the differences? What was the difference between 1899 and the difference between 1920? So making sure that you're a good person, you're a good human being, notices those things. And I'm going to explain that Trump has a way of emailing him on Truth Social. He should be getting those assessments, not a opinionated, you suck, you're, da 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 da. It should be this is what I saw in this particular case, and this is what I saw today, and this is what's not making sense. This is the part that we're seeing that is in need of being addressed. I get fraud and scam emails every day, and I send every single one to his email. I make sure that you can see the email address, so you have to kind of click on the person that sent it so that it pulls down the menu to show you what email address it comes from. And then I take a screenshot of that and I send that to him. It is something that is part of the takeover of the United States, and it's not just our country, it's happening in other countries as well. Possibly a industrial revolution or a technology revolution where they're pulling in people that are in third world countries and putting them into places that they can utilize their attributes. Is that worrisome? Yes. It's worrisome because the supposed areas that they are in, data centers, technology, all of those things are being powered by AI. They're not in need of 22 million people. We don't need the workhorse of that. So what's happening to those people is really important. And when you have a revolution that is not powered by humans, that don't have, that's just using their brute strength or their abilities as a human, but you're using imagination, you're using the ability of their minds being able to picture something, or their minds being able to take something further down the road in a way, is that you start to worry. And I know this sounds really crazy, but you start to worry that they're harnessing people's minds instead of harnessing their brute strength or their coordination or those kinds of things. And hearing people that are not here and having that sensation in my mind at times, it's not all the time, but having that sensation that that there's some things that are kind of being done to me, makes me wonder if that's what's happening. The 500 million gallons of water a day for each data center, if you were to take 500 million gallons of water and turn it into mist over a 26,000 square foot area, you would drown it. It would be the worst thing you could do for electronics. So there's some things that don't make sense. There's some things in the picture that that doesn't make sense with what that is. So I don't know why it's there or why that particular piece of information is not jiving with the picture that they're portraying. But it's important. It's important to note it. It's important to send it straight to the person that you think needs it. If you have a relationship with senators, I tried to talk to them about a living wage. There should be no person in the United States that makes below a living wage for one person. That should be a minimum, and it should go by zip code as to where that center or that job is, and whatever it takes to live in that particular area should be what the minimum wage is. The only times that shouldn't be the case is when you've got children that are apprenticing, children that are learning what to do and how to do it, or people that are training. And that's the only time you shouldn't be paying a living wage. So that's got to change. The thing about doing that is it really does work, because it changes based on if you try to raise prices of something so that you can get away with paying less for those people that are working. When you pay a living wage, you can't cheat. And right now they're cheating and stealing the money from the people that are actually working in the businesses. Making $1 billion while you've got people sitting in their cars and sleeping in their cars at night to be able to work a full-time job, not acceptable. people that are relying on tax dollars, federal dollars, to bridge the gap between their minimum wage and what they have to have as a living wage, also not acceptable. We don't need to pay for that. That's something that the company created. That's something that the company is making. Not fair, not okay, and you will get dinged from it. I promise you that. There is absolutely no way you're not going to get dinged for doing that. And if you think that you're just going to look at one little tiny spot and say, if I'm good as long as that spot's covered, you better think again, because it's not an either or, it's an and.